Have you ever felt like you're running harder than everyone else, yet somehow still falling behind? You push, you grind, you give everything, and still the world moves as if untouched by your effort. Then you meet those who move slower, yet everything bends in their favor. What do they know that you don't? Stay with me and you'll see. As we step into the first chapter, picture this: a man standing in the middle of a battlefield, swinging his sword at every shadow. He's exhausted, drenched in sweat, yet nothing around him truly moves. His enemy isn't the chaos, it's his own confusion. That man is most of us. We've been taught to believe that motion is meaning, that constant effort equals progress. So we fight every battle that appears, mistaking noise for necessity. But here's the truth the Stoics tried to whisper through centuries of human struggle: most of the wars we wage are illusions. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." That line holds more than philosophy, it holds strategy, because most of what drains us isn't the world's demands, but our compulsive need to respond to all of them. We are trapped in the reflex of doing. We mistake exhaustion for accomplishment. We treat busyness as a badge of worth. But busyness is not virtue, it's vanity dressed as diligence. I remember a time when I tried to fill every hour, convinced that the more I did, the more I would become. My schedule looked impressive, my results did not. Each task felt urgent, yet nothing felt important. The Stoics would have called that misdirected effort, energy poured into the wrong vessel. Seneca warned, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." I didn't lack time, I lacked clarity. I was solving problems that would have solved themselves if I had only paused long enough to see the pattern. So I began to practice what the ancients called restraint. Not weakness, discipline. The discipline to wait, to choose my battles, to observe rather than react. At first, silence felt unbearable, but then I noticed something remarkable. The fewer moves I made, the more precise they became. I stopped chasing every spark and started striking only where it mattered. That shift changed everything. We were raised in a world that worships the grind, that tells us worth is measured by sweat, noise, and speed. But if you truly wish to master life, you must unlearn this addiction. You must learn the art of still precision, the ability to hold your fire until the moment counts. Because 90% of what you do adds weight, not progress. The wise don't do more, they do what matters. And that's where true power begins, not in motion, but in mastery. The next step is learning how to wait without wasting, how to act with purpose instead of panic. That's where we go next. Moving into the second chapter, imagine standing in the grand courts of Renaissance Italy, rooms heavy with gold, whispers, and danger. Power shifted not through noise, but through silence. The rulers who endured were not the ones swinging their swords in every direction. They were the ones who waited, who read the room before they moved, who understood that timing, not motion, determined survival. They knew when to act, and, more importantly, when not to. That was their art, the quiet calculation of strength. Now look at us. We've lost that wisdom. We rush to answer every message, say yes to every offer, jump at every opportunity as if delay meant death. We confuse movement with meaning. But Seneca warned us long ago, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. The one who spreads himself too thin vanishes in the noise, and that's what most people have become, echoes of their own distraction. Think about your days. Every buzz, every notification, every request feels urgent. Yet urgency is often a trap, a test to see who still controls their own attention. The weak react, the strong observe. You can measure a person's power by how much they resist the world's demand for immediate response. The Stoics understood that attention is sacred. It's the fire that fuels every act of greatness. Scatter it, and you weaken your spirit. Guard it, and you become unshakable. I once knew a man who said yes to everything. He was reliable, busy, always in demand. But when the moment came for real decisions, no one turned to him. He was known for effort, not clarity. The one who does everything ends up meaning nothing. When you are available for all things, you stand for nothing. Respect is built on scarcity. When your time is rare, your presence becomes valuable. The world doesn't reward constant motion, it rewards precision. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Restraint is not hesitation, it is mastery. The strong conserve their energy for decisive strikes. They don't waste their force proving they're alive, they prove it by what they choose to ignore. So ask yourself, are you moving with purpose or just avoiding stillness? The one who acts on every impulse burns out in mediocrity. The one who waits, observes and strikes only once, at the perfect moment, moves mountains with a whisper. Because life doesn't honor those who fight every battle. It honors those who read the game and know exactly when to play. Advancing to the third chapter, picture a city at dawn, the streets already crowded, faces buried in screens, feet moving fast toward nowhere. Everyone's busy, everyone's in a hurry. Yet if you stopped one of them and asked, busy doing what? Most wouldn't know. They're prisoners of momentum, moving not because they must, but because they forgot how to stop. That's the tragedy of our age. We confuse motion with meaning, activity with progress. The world has taught us that stillness is laziness, and that noise equals success. But the Stoics saw through this illusion centuries ago. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Busyness, he said, is the most seductive form of waste. It disguises itself as purpose while quietly hollowing us out. I once worked with a man who was always rushing. His desk was buried in papers, his phone never silent, his schedule packed with meetings that led nowhere. He wore exhaustion like armor. And yet, when true opportunities appeared, when clarity and courage were needed, he was too drained to see them. He mistook chaos for importance. His days were full, but his life was empty. That's what happens when you live in the activity trap. Everything moves, but nothing changes. Epictetus taught that our freedom begins with choice, not grand choices, small ones. The choice to pause before reacting, the choice to say no to what dilutes your strength, the choice to sit still until the right move becomes clear. The one who acts without direction burns out quickly. The one who waits for the right moment reshapes the world with a single strike. Sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all. The Stoics believed in measured action, guided by reason, not restlessness. They didn't rush toward every call for attention. They reserved their energy for battles that shaped their destiny. When Marcus Aurelius faced crisis, he didn't scatter his power across 10,000 trivialities. He focused on one thing, what was within his control. That's why he endured when others fell. So if you find yourself drowning in endless tasks, remember this: doing more isn't the path to mastery. Doing what matters is. And often, what matters most is waiting for the water to still before you take your next step. Because when you learn to pause, you stop chasing time and start commanding it. From here, we move deeper into that stillness, the place where clarity begins and power is reborn. From here, imagine standing in a crowded marketplace, voices shouting, people rushing, deals being made and broken in the same breath. Everyone moving fast, everyone reacting, everyone trying to be seen. That's how most people live. They don't act, they react. They don't lead, they chase. Their days are spent dancing to rhythms they didn't choose, mistaking motion for mastery. But those who rise above this chaos, the ones who truly move the world, live by a different rhythm, the rhythm of awareness. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. He realized that power doesn't belong to those who shout the loudest or move the fastest. It belongs to those who see the game clearly. He noticed that most men stumble through life, reacting to every turn of fortune, begging the world to be fair. But the few who endure, the ones history remembers, shape their response with patience, precision, and calm. They don't fight every storm, they learn to read the wind. The Stoics understood this long before the Renaissance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if thou wilt ever dig." The meaning is clear. Strength doesn't come from chasing control over everything outside. It comes from mastering the current within. The reactive man is a slave to events. The deliberate man becomes their author. I once watched a friend live in constant response, checking, replying, fixing, explaining. He was always available, always tired, always anxious. He didn't realize that in trying to control everything, he had surrendered control of himself. The Stoics would say he was living at the mercy of impressions, external forces that pull and push until nothing of him remains still. But the moment he learned to pause, to observe before he answered, something changed. The noise didn't vanish, but his mind did not follow it anymore. When you live from your deeper center, what the Stoics called reason aligned with nature, you stop forcing outcomes. You sense timing. You see patterns that frantic eyes miss. You act when the moment ripens, not when panic commands. That's the difference between reacting to life and shaping it. Seneca once said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." But it's more than anger, it's the cure for all impulsive living. The pause between thought and action, that breath of clarity, is where mastery begins. The world will keep moving, loud and chaotic. Let it. Your power lies not in matching its speed, but in mastering your stillness. And from that stillness, your next move will come, not forced, but inevitable. At this stage, imagine a man running endlessly on a treadmill, breathing hard, drenched in sweat, believing every step brings him closer to victory. Yet the ground beneath him never changes. That is our modern life. We've built an addiction to effort. We glorify exhaustion as evidence of worth, as if the one who suffers most deserves the crown. But what if that struggle isn't strength? What if it's avoidance disguised as ambition? The Stoics warned us about this centuries ago. Seneca wrote, "Toil for no reason is the most foolish of all labor." He saw how easily the human mind turns effort into an idol, how people cling to pain because it feels like progress. We've mistaken suffering for significance. We believe that if we're not fighting, we're failing. That belief is a prison, one built not of chains, but of constant movement. Look at the world around you. Everyone is chasing, proving, performing. Rulers of the past fell for the same trap, constantly waging wars to prove their strength until their empires collapsed from exhaustion. The wise, however, understood restraint. They saved their strength for the battle that decided everything. The rest they let pass. Because not all fights are worth fighting, and not all motion leads forward. Most opportunities do not come from pursuit, they come from position. The sea rewards those who learn to ride its rhythm, not those thrashing against its current. When you move with awareness, you align with what the Stoics called logos, the natural order of things. Clarity emerges from stillness, not struggle. The right moment reveals itself when your mind stops forcing it to appear. I've seen brilliant people burn out, not from failure, but from frenzy. They chase every possibility, terrified of missing the one that matters. But in chasing all, they lose sight of what truly counts. Life is not about creating waves, it's about learning when to catch one. The wise appear still, yet their awareness governs everything around them. Their quiet presence moves more than 1,000 frantic hands. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be like the rock against which the waves crash, unmoved." He didn't mean apathy, he meant power through calm. When you stop reacting, you start perceiving. When you stop forcing, you start creating. The modern world punishes this stillness, but that's why it's rare, and rare things hold value. So pause. Stop measuring your worth by your struggle. Real strength is not in motion, but in mastery. True progress begins the moment you stop running in circles and dare to stand still. This is where everything starts to shift, from motion to mastery, from reaction to intention. Imagine standing at a crossroads where one path is paved with constant movement, endless tasks, and quick rewards, while the other leads into stillness, patience, and power. Most people rush down the first road. It feels safer because it's busy. But the Stoic takes the second. The one that demands silence before the strike, the one that turns waiting into strategy. Strategic patience isn't natural, it must be forged. We've been raised to equate effort with worth, speed with success. So when stillness calls, the restless part of us resists. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "No great thing is created suddenly." He was reminding himself and us that real strength grows in the unseen spaces, in the pause between intention and action. Strategic patience is that pause. It's the discipline of not moving until you know why. To develop it, you must first confront your own addiction to activity. Ask yourself the questions most avoid: am I working on the right things? Or am I simply afraid of being still? These are brutal questions. They expose how often we use busyness to escape truth. The Stoics called this self-deception the greatest obstacle to wisdom. When you slow down, you start to see clearly not every effort is noble, not every pursuit is purpose. Machiavelli, though steeped in politics, lived by the same truth. He would retreat from the noise of court, step back, and observe the larger game. He studied not just the moves, but the silence between them. Who was positioning? Who was wasting? Who was acting out of fear? That distance gave him power, because perspective always belongs to the one who pauses. The Stoics practiced the same discipline through reflection. Epictetus taught that we should examine every impression before we act. This examination separates the urgent from the important. The world screams for your attention, but wisdom whispers. And only the quiet mind can hear it. Strategic patience doesn't mean procrastination, it's precision. A mediocre plan executed at the perfect moment outweighs a brilliant idea launched too soon. The wise know this. The world bends not to those who rush, but to those who read its timing. So take a step back, let the noise settle, watch, wait. The moment that truly matters will always reveal itself to the one still enough to see it, because patience isn't passive, it's power restrained, ready and deliberate. And from here, we'll see how that power begins to reshape everything you touch. Entering the 7th chapter, imagine what happens when the noise stops. The phone is silent, the schedule is clear, and suddenly you're left alone with yourself. No deadlines, no distractions, just silence and the weight of what it reveals. That's the moment most people run from. Because when you stop doing, you start feeling. And when you start feeling, you meet the part of yourself that effort was hiding. In that stillness, fears surface, the fear of being forgotten, the fear of not being enough, the fear that without motion, you might disappear. We don't chase success only for achievement, we chase it to escape ourselves. Busyness becomes armor. We drown in activity not because we love work, but because we fear the questions that wait in quiet. Who am I without constant progress? What if the noise stops and I realize I've been moving in the wrong direction? The Stoics faced these same battles in solitude. Seneca wrote, "If you would escape your troubles, you need not be in another place, but in another self." They understood that running from discomfort only strengthens it. To master life, you must learn to sit in uncertainty, to let it burn away illusion until only clarity remains. That's the forge where the strong are made. I remember a time when every pause felt unbearable. If I wasn't busy, I felt guilty. If I wasn't producing, I felt invisible. But I learned what the Stoics knew, that silence isn't emptiness, it's revelation. It exposes the hidden roots of our chaos, the insecurities we've disguised as ambition. Once you face them, they lose their power. Once you stop running, you see where you truly stand. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful than your own soul." That peace doesn't appear when life slows down, it appears when your mind does. The ability to sit calmly in uncertainty is the highest form of discipline, because when you can resist the urge to act just to feel in control, you become capable of acting only when it truly matters. This is the art of strategic patience, the courage to do nothing until wisdom speaks. When you stop forcing life to move faster, you begin to feel its natural rhythm. You see when to act, when to wait, and when to let things unfold. The greatest victories aren't won by those who rush. They belong to those who can hold still long enough to see what others miss. And that, right there, is where true control begins. At this stage, imagine withdrawing from the noise, not as an escape, but as an act of strength. The messages slow, the calls fade, the world still spins, but you stop chasing its rhythm. In that silence, something powerful begins to unfold. It isn't isolation, it's incubation. Just as the seed requires darkness before it can bloom, clarity demands stillness before it can speak. This practice, what I call strategic silence, is one of the most demanding forms of discipline. It strips away every illusion of importance we've built around constant communication and availability. You begin to see how much of your energy was spent keeping up appearances, answering, explaining, proving. Silence becomes your mirror. It shows you what truly matters and what never did. But the world will not applaud you for it. It will resist you. Your own mind will whisper that you're falling behind. It will tell you that stillness is irresponsibility, that slowing down means you've lost your edge. And others, they'll try to pull you back into the noise. They've grown accustomed to your immediate responses, your endless availability, your willingness to carry what was never yours. When you start setting boundaries, they'll call it arrogance. But what they're really saying is this: your stillness unsettles their chaos. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That is the essence of strategic silence, not inaction, but integrity. You stop responding out of reflex and start responding out of reason. You choose your words like a swordsman chooses his strikes, precise, rare, and effective. I once knew a man who practiced this without realizing it. He spoke little, but when he did, rooms fell silent. Not because of his volume, but because of his presence. His restraint gave weight to every word. People learned to listen, not to the sound of him, but to the space around his silence. That is the kind of influence stillness builds, the kind that needs no announcement. This is where Stoic power lives, in boundaries that protect your mind, in choices that conserve your strength. You must be willing to disappoint people who benefit from your overextension. You must be ready to let go of opportunities that demand your soul but offer nothing in return. Strategic silence isn't retreat, it's preparation. It's the still breath before the decisive strike. And the one who masters it no longer reacts to the world, they move it. From here, something begins to change, not just in how you act, but in who you are. The journey of doing less was never about withdrawal. It was about expansion. When you stop scattering your energy across 100 meaningless efforts, you discover something you'd long forgotten: presence. The kind that turns ordinary moments into revelations. The kind that gives weight to your words, steadiness to your choices, and power to your silence. You see, the Stoics never chased productivity. They chased alignment. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Life isn't measured by how much we do, it's measured by how much of what we do truly matters. When you learn to focus your energy on what counts, the noise begins to fall away. Distractions lose their pull. You no longer need to prove your worth through motion, you express it through meaning. But this transformation demands faith. Faith that the right opportunities come not from chasing them, but from being ready when they arrive. Faith that stillness isn't weakness, it's strategy. Faith that your value isn't tied to your effort, but to the clarity behind it. The Stoics called this trust in nature's order, the understanding that timing is its own intelligence. When you're aligned with that rhythm, you stop forcing and start receiving. At first, it feels disorienting. You'll wake up and realize you're no longer racing the clock. You'll feel the strange guilt of having time and energy again. Your old self will whisper, "You're falling behind." But you're not. You're finally seeing clearly. You'll notice how some conversations drain you, how some people appear only when they need something, how most urgent problems dissolve on their own. That's not detachment, it's wisdom. You've stopped carrying everyone else's urgency as if it were your own emergency. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the essence of this shift. Power is not about controlling everything, it's about controlling the right things at the right time. When you master this, you stop performing for the world and start performing through it. Your results begin to speak louder than your explanations. You act less, but accomplish more. You move slower, yet arrive further. Because in the end, doing less isn't about shrinking your life, it's about magnifying your purpose. And when your energy and intention finally move as one, the world bends quietly in your direction. Advancing to the 10th chapter, imagine walking through a crowded room where everyone pulls at your sleeve, asking for just one more favor, one more answer, one more piece of your time. You've lived this before, the quiet exhaustion of being everywhere for everyone. But the moment you stop trying to manage every noise, something shifts. The world doesn't fall apart. It rearranges itself around your new boundaries. This is where your power begins to sharpen. When you stop scattering yourself thin, you start focusing on the few variables that truly move the needle. The Stoics called this the art of directing attention toward what's within your control. Seneca said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." And that's the difference between a life spent reacting and a life built on intention. Leaders, creators, and thinkers who master restraint learn that concentration, not motion, is the highest form of power. But here's the truth. Most won't tell you the moment you reclaim your focus. People will notice. Some will admire it. Others will resent it. Those who genuinely value you will honor your boundaries, grateful for the depth you bring when you do engage. They'll see the difference between presence and mere availability. But others, the ones who benefited from your constant yes, will push back. They'll accuse you of changing. They'll call you selfish, distant, cold. What they really mean is that your strength exposes their dependence. I remember when I first began saying no to things that drained me. The silence that followed was loud. Some friends drifted away, some colleagues grew uneasy. Yet the people who stayed, those were the ones who truly mattered. Respect replaced approval. Peace replaced chaos. I learned what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." You'll feel it too, the weightlifting, the clarity growing. When you stop over-functioning for others, you stop enabling their weakness. You no longer rescue people from the lessons they need to learn. You stand firm, and by doing so, you teach through example. Let them be uncomfortable. Their reaction isn't your burden, because real respect isn't earned by compliance, it's forged through boundaries. Some will like you less, but they'll trust you more, and that trust, born from self-respect, builds relationships that last far longer than approval ever could. This is where the world begins to see you differently, not as someone always available, but as someone truly present. And from here, the final shift begins the evolution from control to command, from reaction to quiet authority. Entering the 11th chapter, imagine walking into a silent morning after years of noise. No notifications, no demands, just space, still and almost unsettling. For the first time, you can feel your own thoughts again. That's the moment most people never reach, because they've spent their entire lives reacting. But when you finally stop, when you master strategic restraint, a new kind of power awakens, the kind that moves not from impulse, but from intention. When you stop living as a reaction, you start living as a response. You realize how much of your life was wasted trying to manage 1,000 trivialities that never really mattered. And direction only reveals itself in stillness, the place where noise cannot follow. The Stoics understood this long before we gave it language. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is ours except time." And once you reclaim it from distraction, time stops feeling like a burden and becomes your ally. In this space of stillness, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see clearly. When you're no longer rushing to answer every noise, you can finally hear the quiet truth underneath it all. You see how your worth was never tied to your effort, but to your presence. You see how being always available made you invisible, while selectivity gives your presence weight. When you stop talking to be heard, people start listening. When you stop trying to be everywhere, you begin to matter somewhere. This is what the Stoics called alignment with nature, becoming who you are instead of who you're expected to be. You begin to shed the roles you performed for others, the fixer, the pleaser, the overachiever. Beneath them, you find the calm, deliberate self. The one that doesn't chase outcomes, but commands them. Opportunities come differently now. You no longer run toward them, they find you. You no longer need to prove your worth. The way you move begins to speak it for you. At first, the silence feels strange, empty where busyness once lived. But stay there, that discomfort is growth in disguise. In that quiet, you'll find rhythm, your own rhythm. You'll sense when to move, when to wait, and when to step aside. Life begins to unfold with precision, not pressure. Marcus Aurelius said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." That calm is the true mark of mastery. It's not passivity, it's presence. It's the ability to see the entire board when everyone else is fixated on one move. It's knowing when to act with exactness rather than desperation. When you do less, what remains is what matters. Selectivity turns presence into power, and in that calm, you no longer chase the current, you command it. This is what Machiavelli and the Stoics both understood. True power doesn't come from doing everything. It comes from doing the right thing at exactly the right moment. That's when you stop chasing the game and start mastering it. Because the true game was never out there. It was always the mastery of yourself. Today we were reminded of a timeless truth. Real power does not come from endless effort, but from clarity, restraint, and the courage to move only when it truly matters. The Stoics understood that energy, like time, is sacred. It must be guarded, directed, and never wasted on distractions that lead nowhere. You are not here to chase everything. You are here to act with precision, to conserve your strength for the moments that define you. Doing less is not laziness. It is wisdom. It is the quiet discipline of choosing what deserves your attention and releasing what does not. When you stop scattering your focus, you begin to see how much power has always been within your control. You stop rushing to prove your worth and start living in a way that reflects it. The wise understand that victory is not earned by constant motion, but by perfect timing, and timing comes only to those who can wait without wasting. If this message resonated with you, take a moment to breathe and reflect. Ask yourself where your energy goes each day. How much of it is creating progress, and how much is keeping you busy without purpose? Let this be your reminder that silence can be strength, patience can be strategy, and stillness can be the sharpest form of action. Write calm power in the comments if this truth speaks to you today. And if you seek more lessons that strengthen your mind and steady your heart, subscribe and stay with me on this path. Together, we will keep learning how to act with intention instead of impulse, and how to find strength in restraint. Carry these insights with you. Remember that your energy is your most valuable resource. Protect it, direct it, use it only when it matters. The wise person acts once, while the fool repeats endlessly. In a world addicted to motion, your stillness will always stand out. The next time life tempts you to rush, pause, feel your breath. Trust that the right moment will always reveal itself when your mind is still enough to see it. You are not falling behind. You are aligning with your own rhythm, and when that rhythm meets the right moment, nothing can stop you. Stay grounded, stay focused, and I'll meet you in the next lesson.